Hello, and welcome to anybody who's watching. This is the Out of Eden Learn Google Plus Hangout for educators, and I'm really pleased to welcome some familiar faces to me, but maybe not to you, some teachers who are with us for the second year running on Out of Eden Learn. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Liz Dawes-de-Rysing, and I co-direct Out of Eden Learn, and I'm talking to you from the offices of Project Zero, located at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Brenda, would you like to go first and just say a little bit about who you are and where you work?
I am Brenda Ball from Vancouver, Canada, and I have been with Out of Eden Learn for a long time, it seems, since near the beginning. And I'm currently working at an international school, high school, so I have students from all over the world, and I don't have a class this term, but typically I do have a class that has been involved with Out of Eden Learn. So this time, this term until December, I'm just watching the new platform and looking at all the new improvements that have been made, and I love it. I like all the things that I'm seeing on the platform, so it's great.
Great, thank you. And actually, I will just give a shout out to Brenda. Brenda worked with me before even Out of Eden Learn existed, when I was piloting an online learning community. So yeah, thank you. Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim Zimmer, and I just made a job change this year. Last year I was working in the suburbs of Chicago, and big change, now I work in Vail, Colorado. I went from public school to private school, and I went from teaching elementary to teaching middle school. So a lot of changes, so I kind of can share the contrast between, doing this with elementary and now middle school students, and how that that dynamic has changed a little bit. But yeah, just excited to be back on the Hangout and back, following Paul. And so yeah, I'm a technology teacher, by the way, so I teach a tech class and always have. So yeah, thanks for having me, Liz.
No, great to see you. Natalie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Natalie Ballet, and I teach grade 5 language arts and social studies in Marblehead, Massachusetts. It's a public school called the Village School, and I have 46 students, and we have been enthusiastically participating with Out of Eden Learn now for 2 years, and I'm really enjoying, like Brenda said too, the new website as far as how we're doing the footsteps this year, and it's just been very exciting for all of my students.
Great. Oh, and I'm going to put Shaya on the spot. Shaya is kind of masterminding the Google Plus Hangout in the background, but Shaya is our new Out of Eden Learn project coordinator, which I am very excited about. Here we are, Shaya.
Hello.
Hi, Shaya.
Hello. So I'm currently a graduate student at Boston University. I'm getting a Master of Arts in Teaching Arabic, and I graduate in January. I finish classes in December. Before I started my master's degree, I worked at a nonprofit in DC, and our curriculum focused on social justice and empowerment education. And I ran an after-school program in a summer camp. And I'm fluent in Arabic. I lived in Cairo, Egypt, pre-revolution, and I lived in Amman, Jordan this past summer. And I'm just really passionate about building connections between young people of differing cultural backgrounds. So my involvement with OOEL is really a great fit for me, and hopefully for Out of Eden Learn too.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give a shout out that Shaya brings with her videography skills. So look out, everybody. We have got some fabulous little videos coming our way. Just really exciting to have some new energy on the project here at Out of Eden Learn. And then the idea is that Shaya's main responsibility is to kind of help with the day-to-day running of their learning community, which will kind of free me up to do some more development work around Out of Eden Learn, and then also to start a research agenda related to it. So I actually want to give a little bit of a shout out to our funders, the Abundance Foundation, who've kind of made this possible to expand our team. And yeah, you're going to be seeing and hearing more from Shaya as the months unfold. So,
Nice to meet you.
thank you, Shaya. Thank you. I just want to start actually by making just a few announcements so that I kind of don't lose track of them once we dive into what's been going on in your classrooms. And the first thing, which is very exciting, is that tomorrow, Paul has a new feature article in the National Geographic magazine coming out. So there will be a little flurry of publicity around that from National Geographic. The piece relates to the time he spent in the Middle East, specifically walking through the West Bank and spending time in Jerusalem. Although I have to say that at this point I have not laid eyes on the article itself, so it's going to be a big surprise for me as well. And then Paul has another magazine feature coming out in February. So just want to say, it's really, terrific that Paul's getting so much coverage, because the National Geographic magazine has such a far reach and is translated into different languages, etc. There's a chance to interact with Paul himself next week. So he and I are, it's called a keynote, but I have to admit there are several keynotes at this online conference called the Global Education Conference. It's online.
I was wondering if you guys were doing that. Okay.
Yeah, we are there, and it's going to be in the form of a dialogue between me and Paul. So I think it's going to be, I hope it's going to be an engaging kind of session. And I've just got to check that I'm telling you the right time. I believe it's 1 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Yeah, so it's on Wednesday. They are going to record it, but it would be great to have some teachers kind of sending in questions. It's kind of like you can't hang out like this, but it's definitely the live functionality so that Paul can be responding to people's questions. And for those who are watching, I did send out an email, but we would love to have some questions ahead of time that either your kids or you as educators have for Paul, because we will definitely weave that into the session, even if you can't ask them live. So that's exciting, I think. We're looking forward to that. I think people like to know how Paul is doing. He's doing good. The last time that we spoke to him here from Project Zero, he was walking pretty quickly for a variety of reasons. One, winter is coming to the Anatolian region where he is in eastern Turkey, and so they want to make good ground before it really becomes tricky with the temperature. And I also say, the security has been a little bit shaky at times, and so I think it'd be very good for Paul to get out of Turkey. He's going to take a break over the winter is the plan. I think the latest plan is he'll be in Georgia. And then, he'll be planning out the next piece of his journey. But he's in good spirits, doing well, and he's really been excited to check in about what we're doing. And I'm also happy to say he's imminently about to be writing comments for students about their work. Right, we have to curate it because obviously he can't reply to all students, but we're trying to do it in a way that every walking party gets something from Paul, and then this year we're going to kind of share a bit more publicly so that all kids get the benefit of kind of some of Paul's insights and responses. Yeah. So I think that's it for now on kind of just some headlines, but and I can talk a bit more about some things going on with that at Feed and Learn in a minute. But I think it would be great to just dive in and hear how things have been going at your end. Natalie, do you want to jump in with how things have been going with you?
Yeah, things have been very exciting here. We started out the year with actually, it couldn't have been better. We did some weaving with some artwork as far as the kids coming up with their avatars and really thinking about color, symbol, and images for them. So weaving in thinking routines and a lot of PZ type of ideas, which really got the kids thinking about who they were and who they wanted to be, who they wanted to show other people that they were as learners and as thinkers, but also as far as where they're from. Being in Marblehead, we're in a very coastal community, a big sailing town, and they wanted to somehow get that across, because not only are we a big sailing kind of town, but we're also the birthplace of, or we say that we are, other places say that they are too, but we say that we're the birthplace of the American Navy. And the kids have a lot of historical ties and a lot of historical family ties with this town. So lately, especially with this last footstep with interviewing people, the kids have really branched off into thinking about who that individual is in our town or in their family that they wanted to interview. And a lot of them looked for a lot of the historical families of Marblehead, but also people who've had businesses here for a long time period. And they set out and they scheduled times to meet with them. Some of them went with their parents. Others other people actually came to their house. So it wasn't just their immediate neighborhood, their street. They really thought about their local neighborhood and where they were in this community. And for us, that's been exciting. We're kind of right in our first draft of these interviews because we're turning them into, you know, the first-person narratives, because that also really connects being a public school. We have the Common Core curriculum, and it really connects to our narrative writing units. So that piece has been exciting. So we're revising and tweaking and going back also to the people that they interviewed. They're going back to them with more questions, more detail. And what's interesting is what they want to do at the end is they want to make sure that they're true to that person's story, and they're going to present them with a final product too, so that they can have. So that's, yeah.
I'll just add here, just for people who are maybe new to the community, when we did a survey at the end of last year, the interview was the favourite activity amongst the community, which was kind of really interesting to me. We got very positive feedback on most of the other footsteps, but for many students last year, this was a real standout, where they really felt that they learned something and connected with somebody who was older than them. So thanks for taking it to the next level there, Natalie. Yeah.
We're going much slower with this too, because we've found that it almost takes a week for them to schedule those interview appointments, you know, we have this motto: we can go fast to go slow, or slow to go fast, and so we've really taken this one slower, because now they're working on looking back at the questions that they asked, thinking about maybe whether they could have asked some deeper questions or asked why more often or how more often. And they're also doing some writing conferences. So I've let them know that they can go back as many times as they want to the Out of Eden Learn website and their footstep and edit what they originally put in. So so we're really looking at this as a really valuable piece of writing for them as well.
Great, great. Thank you so much. We'll maybe come back to that. I'm also saying that we had somebody else join us. They've gone. We hope they'll come back.
Yeah.
So, Kim, do you want to jump in and say how things are going with you in Vail?
Sure. So again, you know, transitioning from elementary school to middle school, it's definitely a different dynamic with the students. I'm finding that the 7th graders are needing a little more buy-in, and I'm not sure why. I only meet with them once every 6 days, and that could be something just like the lack of consistency, that we're not doing this enough. They're definitely interested in Paul and what he's all about. These kids, you know, they grow up in a very adventurous environment here in Vail. They're all skiers. I'm trying to find through this program more dimensions to them, because if you read our posts, so most of them are about skiing. We ski, we have mountains. We ski, we have mountains. Okay, so what else? What else is there about you? And the communication piece we're working on. So my big angle here was teaching digital citizenship through this environment. And instead of me standing up and lecturing them on common sense media lessons and things like that, I figured let's jump in and let's start communicating with kids in other parts of the country and other parts of the world. And I think in 7th grade, you know, it's like kind of the different stage of life, you know, and these kids are grappling with social things, and you know, so a lot of it is, you know, not so good for them because they don't get a lot of exposure to people outside of this community, this bubble here in Eagle County. So I do like that. One of the neatest things that happened, and we're still kind of getting rolling with it, was our school has an international program here. So we have an international program coordinator who goes out and basically seeks out other schools that want to partner with us for different things. And Liz, I'm not sure if you heard, I contacted someone at Out of Eden because we had made a connection with a school in India. And one of my colleagues, you know, who I was telling about this program to, she mentioned, oh my gosh, I wonder if there would be a fit because this school in India has really been interested in doing some kind of collaboration with us, but we just haven't been able to figure out a good fit. They're not going to send kids to our school. We do have students that come over from China, and we have a student from Germany right now. Next year that program is going to be expanding, but she said, I wonder if we could find a teacher at Vail Valley at this school in India to participate in Out of Eden, and that could be the connection between, you know, their 7th graders and our 7th graders. And it actually worked out. So in one of my walking groups, we have this school, Vail Valley, from India, and they're just getting started. And I would say our walking groups are really just getting started. The kids are just starting to, like, sort of recognize usernames and recognize people that they have communicated with. But yeah, so that was very cool because I feel like we have this sort of connection with them, but hopefully that will grow and grow and grow through this program and through this experience, and we can do this again and again with them. So
can I just jump in a minute there, partly because I've forgotten that Brenda needs to go soon, but just to shout out to everybody, when you sign up a class, there is a space where you can request to be put with the school, and we really love that, where there's an existing international connection between schools. We are very happy to facilitate, you know, as you said, taking advantage of Out of Eden Learn to deepen connections between classrooms and to place people with schools. So thank you for that. And can we come back to you, but segue maybe to Brenda, because Brenda works in an international school, so it'd be kind of interesting from your experience with Out of Eden Learn and working with those students, how they weren't maybe living in such a close community, maybe, or maybe they're, you know, seen a lot more of the world because they are international students. How do they deal with the dialogue issue and connecting with other kids?
Well, my students are an interesting group because they are from everywhere, and they're home here, and it's interesting to watch their connections when they're mapping their community, because their community is actually very small. We're a dorm school, so they're living on site, most of them, about 2/3 on site, and so we have to do some basic instruction on, you know, what builds community and what is community. And so it comes back to kind of the original project that Liz and I worked on a long time ago, and thinking about history and identity, and we've seen that build over time with Out of Eden Learn. And so they're coming from such different perspectives, and of course we have the ELL issue as well, so they're still building their English for the most part. I have some Anglophones in my class, but the vast majority are ELL learners. And so the connections are a little bit different, and even when I asked them the footstep about taking photographs, they have to put in, I can't remember which footstep it is now because it was different last time, I think. But they took photos of their neighborhood, and some of them had recently been home, so we got photos, even though it was from Vancouver, we had some photos from China and some photos from Russia and some photos from Italy, I think, maybe even Japan, instead of just Vancouver. And so some of the commentary was interesting too. One of the things my students were a bit challenged with was they weren't quite as good as responding to other people in the walking party's comments, and I've noticed in this particular walking party that I'm following right now, there's a lot more commentary, and I think that's one of the successes of the new platform, is the building of the part 1, part 2, part 3, really helping the students figure out, you know, and the teachers actually to figure out learning, and then getting involved in your learning, and then connecting with other members of the walking party. It's really beneficial now having those 3 parts listed at the first step.
Yeah, our connection's a little shaky to you, actually, Brenda. Maybe, yeah, I'm wondering, maybe turning your picture off might be good if you just needed to say something else. Yeah. And if you could just say, I'm pleased to hear, but if you could just say a little bit more about how you're finding the new structure to work, because from our perspective, we're still finding it a bit early to see if, for example, the dialogue toolkit has been helpful or not. So I'd kind of be interested to hear you say a bit about how you're seeing that play out.
Well, I have to say, as a teacher, I'm really liking the division of Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and the different color coding and the opening it, because it lets teachers at least decide what they want to do with it. I was finding, especially with my ELL learners and possibly maybe with the younger learners too, middle school and elementary school, that I ended up dividing that as well, like basically creating my own lesson plan with it and chunking it. So I really appreciate that you've done the chunking for me now so that the students can and teachers can divide kind of the task that way. I definitely have seen now in my walking party, I guess maybe in most right now we're at footstep number 4, but I'm just seeing a lot more commentary and engagement amongst the members of the walking party. And so that's really beautiful to see, because I have found that from my side and as a teacher perspective, it's sometimes really challenging to, you know, I can assign them, make sure you comment on 3 people's footstep or posting, but I'm just seeing it happening more now, and I would like to know how other people are managing that and getting the student engagement, but it's definitely more visible this time than the previous times I've been involved in a walking party.
Do either of you two want to speak to that?
I really value the platform, especially for my kids from an organizational standpoint, because how I break it down for them is I do break it down in 3 parts. Sometimes it's 4 parts, from reading the dispatches or doing that part 1 and then part 2, and oftentimes I have them do that also for homework. They're 10 and 11 years old, so I think by having that kind of organization, I feel like their learning becomes a lot more authentic and their commitment seems to be much higher. And for them, as far as responding and using that dialogue toolkit, I think is very helpful. We use that similar language in our classroom anyway, but I think the more that they use that, the more they are quicker to respond or to really look at points that other children have mentioned in their posts and pulling those details out, either asking for more or commenting on connections that they're able to make in their own lives. So I love the new platform. I think it's great, and I like the pacing as well. The pacing for me is much better. And knowing that I've got some time to truly slow down in my own class for some of this learning.
Yeah, well, for those who are not so familiar with Out of Eden Learn, we did get feedback from users last year, and we did pick up on the fact that it would be slightly ironic if teachers felt really rushed by Out of Eden Learn when we're trying to promote slowing down a bit and being thoughtful. So this has been very much us listening to teachers and educators. So I think a lot of the changes you see, it's actually educators and students who've come up with the ideas, not us sitting here in Cambridge. So. Oh, great. So, Connie, is that you?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Oh, good. Great to see you. Do you want, as that was a natural little pause in the conversation, do you want to just introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. I'm my kids just left, so I'm sorry I'm late. But I'm Connie, and I teach C. I have 4 groups of 20, roughly, that I teach. Yeah, and this is my 2nd year doing Out of Eden.
So we were just talking about some of the changes to Out of Eden Learn format from last year, and just wondering how you're finding that, if you want to jump in.
Yes, I'm finding that it's working better for us. Last year I felt like we were kind of like rushing through each step, and I like to give them a few days, a couple of days to kind of ponder and think about it, and then be able to do it. So I definitely like that there's that 2-week period to complete. There's that wiggle room to complete the footstep.
Great, great. Because Brenda and Natalie have to go, I'm going to ask them if there's any questions they have or anything they'd like to share before we have to wave goodbye to you.
I just wanted to mention I launched this year. We'll see how it goes, but an after-school club with Out of Eden Learn, and I'm excited about it because there are 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, and there's only actually I think it's only one 4th grader. Who's here? Is it one 4th grader? Two 4th graders.
No, there's 3. There's
3 4th graders. Okay. We have 3 4th graders, but then we have some kids that are currently in my classroom now that are going to be doing some more mentoring and looking at maybe developing some like student blogging. They're really excited about helping and thinking outside just out of Eden here to make it really interesting for some of the kids that are new to this. And then I also have my 6th graders who actually did Out of Eden last year, but they're looking at it from a new kind of perspective, and also the fact that Paul is somewhere different now on his journey. You know, he's in Turkey now, and so they wanted to stay with him. And so there's actually, I think, 5 6th graders that I have this time, and so it'll be really interesting to see how their learning shifts and extends from this after-school program. There's, I think, we've got somewhere between 15 and 18 kids.
And I think you're weaving in some other components like international films and other such. Right?
We're doing global literature and also some different short films, some TED Talks, and then also some international films. Yep, absolutely. So that's what they're doing right now. And they're trying to get books that have the settings where Paul is or where Paul has been. Or where Paul will be currently going. So right now, my 5th graders and some of the 6th graders are starting to really look into the significance of the Silk Road and travel and what the Silk Road was used for, which also will correlate as well with our Explorers unit with Marco Polo. So we can weave and bob a little bit there as well. But they're more interested in this road and what this road was used for in the past and what it's being used for now.
Great, thank you. Brenda, you wanted any parting words before you have to rush off?
Well, I actually just wanted to say that sounds amazing, and 2 of my colleagues at my previous school they've applied to join a walking party, but they'll get in the spring, I guess, and they're both teaching comparative civilizations, which is very similar to AP World History, but not with the big exam at the end, so it's kind of the best of both worlds. And I really like what additions you've made there, and I think I'm going to recommend to them those ideas, and because the Silk Road features so much in that curriculum as well, at least here.
Absolutely.
The curriculum we have here for comparative civilizations, that I think those are natural additions anyway. So I'm excited to see what they do, and as well to find out what course I'm going to be teaching next term to see how I can weave that in, because we don't have comparative civilizations this term, but we should next term and in our summer term. So I'm hoping that we can see some additions there and join some walking parties next term as well at my school.
Right, and I'll just give a shout out that we really want to build up, the resources on the Educator Forum, because there's fantastic work going on in the classroom, and if people are generous enough to share some of their ideas and the wealth, I just think that's a lovely part of Out of Eden Learn, building some educator community and yeah, doing the best work that we can.
Hey,
One
Natalie,
other thing I'd like can I add? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Brenda.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I really liked, Liz, your previous blog post. I retweeted it, or I think tweeted it out, because I love that activity that you did, and I think that would be a nice additional activity for the students to do to really get them thinking about mapping and storytelling and global connections, and how history and identity are linked that way, and the story that tells. I just thought it was a beautiful blog.
Well, thank you. As you can see, it was based on what other people are doing, and yeah, I did find that for those who haven't read it, I took part in a workshop where we had to try and cut a beach ball, which was the form of the globe, and represent it on a flat piece of paper, which mathematically and practically is really, really difficult. But it kind of highlighted how arbitrary maps are, and they're just representations of the world, and they really got thinking about how we think what maps really are, what they represent, and some of the assumptions that are built into who goes on the top of a map or the bottom, and where things are positioned. So Thank you for that shout out, Brenda. So we'll carry on talking, and if Natalie and Brenda, you have to leave, please just feel like you can slip away. I'd just like to recognise we've had a couple of questions come in, and it would be good while you're here to address them. So Cindy Barry, who is based at St. Martin's in the Field Episcopal School in Savannah Park in Maryland. I'm just reading it off a sheet here. She says, we're planning a global bazaar from K to 8, which is a student-driven fair based on the Out of Eden Walk. I'll just say that this school, the whole school is following Out of Eden Walk. We've got a class doing Out of Eden Learn, but they have, daily announcements, bulletin boards, all the kids are following Paul's progress. And she carries on, we hope it will build through the years as Paul Salopek continues his walk. Based on his journey so far from Ethiopia to Turkey, what are some ideas for booths or tables where students can display and talk about the culture, arts, heritage and learning of the places Paul has walked through? I'll put that out there to you. Any ideas that we could share with Cindy about how she might approach that? And have any of you done anything similar, I guess?
No, I have not done any type of bazaar kind of like setting up booths, but one of the things that I think has just been so powerful for our students, and when we're talking about right now the sensory imagery that Paul experiences on his walk, and it would be really great, I think, to see like that table where there's the sounds, and to do thinking routines around some of the sounds that he might hear. I mean, I'm just thinking about so many of his dispatches, just hearing those footsteps or just the language of individuals, but to have some type of that sensory kind of imagery booth with sounds and smells, and I don't know about taste these days with allergies, but that could be interesting based on his travels.
I'll just say that there's a long-time collaborator we have called Kirsten Russell, who's at Newton South School. I know I'll be in touch with her because I know that she's done some fantastic things with high school students around sharing different cultures. So I guess if anybody's out there listening, and I can see that we have got viewers at the moment, or anybody who watches this later, if you could email us, we will pass on ideas to Cindy, and then we can post them in the forum as well, because I think this is the kind of thing that quite a few schools do. Well, in North America, I can't speak for the rest of the world. But anybody else here got anything they want to share?
Our school does an international fair. The high schoolers, it's a put it on, and taste, obviously food, but dress and dance, any of those booths also would highlight the culture. Music, I could see a lot of different things that they could do. Our booths, so.
Okay. I've got another question here, but I'll save that. I wondered, as we've got a few of you on at the moment, there's actually an issue that's kind of arisen recently within the community that we really like to solicit educator feedback on, because we're in the process pretty rapidly actually of developing a policy around this. Interestingly, last year this problem did not arise, and I'm not sure why we're suddenly getting a cluster now, but we've had a few incidents recently of what I would call problem posts. Ranging from the maybe unintentionally offensive to the kids being mischievous and putting inappropriate stuff up. So I don't want to say it's widespread, but we've had 4 or 5 incidents in the last few weeks, and I'd just really like to hear your perspective as educators. I won't say what our thoughts are. I'd kind of like to hear from you. In the situation where you're in a walking party, a kid puts up something that really is kind of not okay, and a specific example being making a sweeping negative statement about a group of people. How would you as educators like to see us handling that or dealing with it?
I think from a teacher perspective, the one the one issue that I grapple with is accountability and how to track exactly what students are doing in Out of Eden. I like that I can click on the roster, I can click on the student, and I can see a snippet of what they've been posting, but I don't necessarily have a record that I can like print out and keep track of, you know, and not that I want to print it, but you know, like a teacher dashboard specifically where I can scroll down and see all the comments. So at the end of my class period or when I have my plan period that day, I could just go into my, you know, 7A class and kind of see all the activity for the day as a teacher and have that be so organized that I would be able to catch that right away and, you know, address that with the student. Right now, for me to click on each individual name and go through and kind of sift through the way that it's set up does make it more difficult, and I find that I'm less inclined to keep up with exactly what all of my students are saying all of the time. And I know that's a total, you know, database back-end type of thing that would need to happen on the website, but you know, ever since last year, I just kind of wish there was a way for me to get like even a teacher report at the end of the week. This is the activity that your students posted, and from your perspective, I mean, it's got to be difficult to keep track of everything that students are posting, and so I think that should fall on the teachers. We should be able to really track what our students are doing and manage that on our own end if we're participating in this. That shouldn't be your responsibility. So, you know, and when that happens, you know, those are those tricky teaching moments where, you know, you have that conversation with the student and you ideally have them take it down and you discuss as a class, you know, generally speaking, why comments like that are culturally insensitive. And maybe there is a little PDF we can download that has like prompts that you can have those discussions with the class ahead of time or after that happens, like what a response would be. So yeah, I would just say like being able to, does anyone agree with me about just like really being able to track what the students are saying? I don't know why I have difficulty with that.
My kids blog, and when they're blogging, you know, it's just a cleaner format where I could I read all of their blogs and catch the ones that, honestly, I've never really come across one that's inappropriate, but I know that there's the possibility. They're kids and they're going to make bad choice. Sure. But yeah, having just where I could just click on their name and having a list of each class, like I use Kid Blog, and so it's nice and easy. I open, I can scan through what they've written and just keep track on it with it, and also I just feel more connected with the kids. Also, I could comment on what they posted. And, yeah, I agree.
So maybe just, yeah, like a weekly digest would be kind of cool that summarizes the posts that the students did or the commenting that they did. That could be involved. I don't, you know, I'm not a web developer, but that would help, as well as just a teacher dashboard that makes it a little bit easier to kind of track student by student. I have a couple of boys in 7th grade, and I'll say that it's the boys, and they're just goofy. They laugh a lot about the comments. They haven't really posted anything rude to anyone, but seeing them kind of like in cahoots together, like, oh, look what this kid wrote, or look at this, and it makes me nervous for that, and I kind of jump on it right away when I see that sort of like, you know, when they give me that visual cue that they're up to no good, I will go over and kind of hover and make sure that they're not, you know, and then there's a couple of students that I will always just make a point to go check and see what they wrote that day, but it is tricky sort of to manage. If you have multiple classes of kids, you're talking about 40 plus kids, you know, and how best to sort of keep track of what they're doing. And I'm totally guilty of just kind of letting it all go and seeing how it all works itself out. But I was just thinking today, I need to now go kid by kid and see what they've been doing so I can give them a grade about, you know, what they've been doing so far, or give them a little plus, minus, whatever. So, and it's tricky to do that, to go through and, you know.
We spent a lot of time in the very beginning going over like the whole accountability and ethics behind being online, and the kids have been acting like as their own like accountability partners. But once again, though, Kimberly, I mean, I've got 5th graders, 7th grade and 5th grader. They're different. in a lot of ways. But we're also doing a lot of reading around what it means to be a bystander and what happens if you don't do anything. The other piece that we also did was I made sure that the Out of Eden Learn that Liz had put up, as far as contacting her if we see anything. So the kids knew that they could contact Out of Eden Learn or contact me immediately. So that's how we were dealing with it. And so I haven't seen anything, but they're also very vigilant as far as watching out. They're more concerned if somebody exposes their personal identity to make sure that they stay safe. Stay safe. So those are like totally different types of things that they're thinking about, is just protection and making sure everybody stays safe online.
That's funny, whereas the 7th graders can't stand that they can't use their I don't know who this person is. Like, that's very hard for them. My 4th graders last year could have cared less. They love their little, username and their avatar, but these kids are like, why can't I post my picture? So it lends itself to those conversations about privacy and security, and which I appreciate. But it's tricky for them to not have that naming and not know who they're talking to, and I've kind of enticed them by saying, at the end of this all, like, if we want to do a Skype with the classroom and you want to actually, find out who these people are, if it's okay with the teacher, we can do that. But yeah, that's definitely hard for them, for the 7th graders. They're in like that social media phase where it's just starting to have Facebook, just starting to be on, Instagram and Snapchat and everything, and they want to know people. They want to know who they are. So.
Yeah, no, that I can see. I mean, for those who don't know, the reason we insist on kids not revealing their identity, it's partly to do with us having a research agenda to this and what Harvard University will allow us to do. But we've tried to make a necessity of virtue, because I do think it differentiates what we're doing from things like Facebook and Snapchat, and particularly middle schoolers. I think their natural propensity would be to take selfies or of themselves, and it kind of forces their attention outwards. So I think we've had you yourself have said this before. We try and make virtue of a necessity.
I love that I can use that as a jumping off point for why this is the way it is, and why it's important to remain anonymous in a lot of cases online. We talked about their email addresses. Does your email address have your full name? Look at what you're giving. You're giving away that information right there. And so it's really great from a technology teacher perspective when I can use something like this to teach those important lessons. And I think all teachers should be, embedding those types of lessons in this environment. It's a perfect segue to it, and it's a lot. Those lessons don't always come easy in a regular classroom. That you usually have to take time out to do that. But when you're doing something like this, it's just it's perfect. It's a perfect opportunity.
Right. Yeah, and I'll just give a shout out that my colleague Carrie James, maybe in about 2 weeks' time, we're going to have a Google Plus Hangout where she talks about encouraging kind of deep, sensitive, respectful, but authentic dialogue between children. She's really spearheaded the dialogue toolkit, and she has a new book out, which I can just give a little plug for, called Disconnected. And she really looks at some of the challenges that there can be for how young people and also adults behave online relative to the real world. And there's this sense that somehow things being on screen and not really being so accountable for what it is you do can lead to some kinds of behaviors that are less than desirable online. So look out, everybody, for that upcoming session. Any other comments about how we might what kind of policies we might do about inappropriate posts? And I'll share what our current thinking is about that.
I think it's a great learning opportunity for the kids to make those mistakes too.
Yep.
But if once they've been made aware how insensitive the remark was and they continue to do it, and I would be okay with them just not participating in it. Just if they're habitual about making those mistakes, then they're choosing to do it. And sometimes they offend without really realizing what the words mean. So that's my thought about it.
Got it.
Great, great. Well, I think the way we're thinking about this, it feels compatible with what you're saying. Like, we're very keen to make these like what we would call teachable moments, and we definitely, our instinct is to support educators, but delegate down, because I think individual educators know the specific context in which this is happening. We want to do it in such a way that we're not humiliating people who've made a mistake. I mean, we don't want to be kind of calling them out in a very public way. However, we need to be taking a stand, like not letting offensive language kind of sit there or seem like we're condoning it. So what we're hoping to do, and I think the idea of us having a PDF or visible tools or resources available to suggest, not tell teachers how to navigate this, but suggest if they want to engage in a conversation in the classroom around such issues. We'll try and do what we can to support it. So I guess our first port of call is to contact the educator, alert them to what's going on. Because I think, Kim, what you're saying really resonates in that we need to make it easier for teachers to keep an eye on what's going on. So I really appreciate that feedback, and we'll see what we can do. I myself cannot personally program that functionality, but I can try and find somebody who can. And then, if for whatever reason it's difficult or impossible for the educator to get the student to edit, delete, change what they're doing, I do think we're going to reserve the right to just delete student accounts, and to do that pretty swiftly, because we have to get that balance between protecting everybody in the space and, allowing a child to kind of make up for a lapse or a mistake. But the devil's in the details, and actually we've had quite different examples. So one example, which I don't want to go into the specifics of it, but it was to do with real ongoing conflict that's happening in the world, and a child coming from that area and having very strong feelings about a group that was perpetrating something on another group. That's very different from a kid mucking around and using inappropriate language, because we can understand that a child who's been through a very traumatic experience is going to have a lot of emotion around that. So we're finding that we're going to have to kind of be a little nuanced, shall we say, in how we suggest teachers go about things. But yeah, thanks for kind of airing some of that with us, because it's really a conundrum, and it's kind of actually astonishing to me that it hasn't come up before, really, but it just hasn't. So
I think that's a real world thing that can happen too. I had a student last year whose Instagram account was deleted by Instagram for like purposes of like having an ongoing kind of like bullying, threatening conversation. There are, if you can get your Facebook account deleted. You can get, my students are doing Scratch right now. Scratch is one of those websites where it allows for social, for communication and liking and, commenting on other students' projects, and they will delete accounts. So it's not
Do that.
completely out of the realm to have an account deleted on a social networking site if you are not contributing to the, policy of that website in a positive way. And if you do click on like those rules and FAQ and community guidelines, if you take the time and have your students click on those before they sign up for a website, you'll find that most of them say, not to treat others like that. So, or it's grounds for, getting your account canceled. So I don't think that's something.
Oh, and I'll just give a shout out for our teacher or educator tips, which educators, when you view the footsteps, you can click on a button. For footstep 1, we did have some suggestions for how you might talk with kids about what we call authentic yet sensitive engagement. And there's the trick. We don't want to be censoring kids so they can't share, how they feel about things. But on the other side, they need to be aware of audience and being respectful and sensitive to others. So it's a balance, and it's something I think adults struggle with out in the real world, getting the balance right. We've got plenty of examples out there of adults behaving badly. Yep. So yeah, we're trying to see this as a teachable moment, but while at the same time facilitating it so we minimize this kind of thing, because that will really get in the way of what Out of Eden Learn could be about. I just got a couple of things.
Sorry, Liz, can I add one more thing? I don't know. I don't know how difficult. I mean, you know, totally reinventing the dashboard might be trickier, but you know, like when you're using KidBlog and things like that, and I used blogs last year at my old school, you know, there was this approval process. And I really like the fact that Out of Eden allows you to just do that instantaneous, boom, click send, like your post is out there. But there could also, there's also something to be said about having the teacher be able to hit publish for the kid. And I don't know if that will be a lot more work for the teachers, obviously, but then there's that accountability built in that, you know, and, you know, the way I see it is, you know, I could have this website, I could have it pulled up in my class, and as the kids are posting, like, I could just be hitting great, publish, just like I go around and walk around the room and scan their posts before they post. What's the difference between doing that and just kind of saying publish, 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 or not publish? And the powerful thing about having that ability with our blogs was that I could go back to a student and say, okay, you know, this is looking good, but can you keep the conversation going? What else can you add to this? You know, so that could be another thing to possibly consider. We're talking about students here. We're talking about their ability to just click the post button willy-nilly whenever they want, and whether or not that's, you know, something that K8 or K7 or K6 students should have the ability to do. I don't know.
Interesting. Great. Well, thank you actually for that. That's definitely something we'll look into. I have a couple of questions here. One is, has there been any progress getting higher ed classes approved to create their own classroom for Out of Eden Learn? I teach humanities at a community college, and my students could benefit greatly from such participation. Thank you. I'm just trying to see who sent that. Okay, I've got it there. D. Standback. So thank you for that question. As it happens, over the last year we did get a few inquiries, but always at kind of times when we didn't have other community colleges in the mix, and we definitely are not going to be mixing over 18s with, or you know, post-high school students with younger students. We aren't allowed to do that. I would have concerns about safety and appropriateness, etc. However, we have recently been getting a little, you know, surge of interest from not just community colleges but universities, etc. And we are going to be experimenting with grouping college-age kids together on the Out of Eden Learn, and this is the beauty of our website, that we can cluster them in a way that they will have no contact with school-age children. So for anybody who are out there who's listening, you know, we're going to start small and just see where this goes, but or if you know somebody who might be interested in this, the beauty of Out of Eden Learn is I think you can get out of it different things at different ages, and certainly I think that college-age students or English language learning classes of all ages, you know, we've had expressions of interest from adult, you know, really adult English language learning classes. So yeah, we're open to that, but just really want to make public we're not going to be mixing adults and kids at this point, just because we really do not have the authority to do that, and I personally would have concerns about it. Oh, Monica's trying to get in but having connection problems. I'm sorry to hear that. We also had somebody else who was trying to get in and that didn't work, so I hope you're able to at least see us. Scott Tufiash has written and said, any reroute yet? I'm going to interpret that to mean Paul and his walking. So as I said earlier, yeah, Paul has definitely been faced with some political challenges on this route of the, part of the walk. For the record, he is still holding out some hope of being granted a visa to walk through Iran, but that has not been forthcoming, and because of the winter and also some political considerations, he's walking north out of Turkey and then is going to pause for a while to reroute. So the news on that is yes. Certainly, I think Paul is using this as something to share with the world, that you cannot just walk around the world as you please freely, and especially in the era in which we live, where, you know, when Paul first planned the route, we didn't know that things were going to really I want to say go in the way that they have with the resurgence of ISIS. The war in Syria is going horribly. You know, there's been all kinds of things that we couldn't necessarily have predicted, and so this is, you know, really something that's going on in the present, and Paul having to watch out for his safety. And for those who didn't see it, he wrote a dispatch recently where he and his walking partners literally had to get in a truck and drive away from the village where they were because it was just too unsafe for them to be there. So he's safe right now, we hope. But these have been real issues. Yeah.
Can I ask you about his dispatches? Because some of them I really want to read to the kids, but at the 5th grade level, you know, they're just
even
not.
at the 7th grade level. My kids couldn't read the one this week. I was translating the entire thing for them.
So powerful and beautiful, and I'm not saying vocabulary. I'm talking about, you know, like beheading. You know, there was a reference to that, and how do you get around? You just don't show it, and because they have access to it on the site, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Now, I have my son in a very informal way participating in Out of Eden Learn just because I wanted him to kind of get this exposure. And I'm not going to lie, he's 5th grade, sorry. I'm not reading those dispatches to him. I'm personally censoring them. This raises a bigger question as well, and I hadn't thought about them getting such ready access on our website, and that's something maybe we need to think about. But more broadly, we're really thinking about how can we use the dispatches in a more substantive way and invite young people to engage with the issues in them. Now, granted, ones with beheadings are not going to be appropriate fodder for, you know, 4th and 5th graders. So we might need to be selective on that. But this is something that at the moment, we've picked out a few and we're using them as jumping off points for kids. We're not really engaging with what Paul has written. Well, we've introduced a thing where we ask them to kind of to read Electronic Oasis or Soul Brothers and kind of tell us what they find intriguing or what questions they have. But other than that, we haven't really done what we initially thought we would. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, whether we select out a few and have a live discussion board that any registered kid on Out of Eden Learn could do, if we have it organized by age. I don't know. I'd just be eager to hear from you or anybody else who's watching or would like to send in some questions about this.
Kids are walking in right now, and you know who just walked in is Stephen's daughter. So I'm going to have to go. Her class just walked in from lunch, so I have to go. And you guys it was fun, and I hope to connect again in the future.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for the work you're doing, Connie, and also for finding the time to do this.
Thank you.
It's great. Thank you.
Bye.
So we've got a couple of minutes, just you and me, to wrap this up. Yeah, I don't know if do you want to say a bit about what you've been doing with the dispatches other than translating line by line?
Well, yesterday we brought it up as a class after they did their slow walk image post. And I said, let's take a look at the dispatch. We haven't looked in a couple of weeks at Paul's dispatch. And, I had a couple of the students who had finished early sort of pre-read, like do a little pre-reading. And they kind of stopped and they're like, Ms. Zimmer, this is really, like, I don't know. I feel like in middle school, they do tend to skim more, and if they don't immediately understand what is going on, they just kind of check out. And so what I did was I pulled up a map and I said, let's try to find exactly where he's at. Okay, because that's what they really care about. They want to know where Paul is. And sometimes on the map that's, above, that kind of is the backdrop for the whole, communications page, like they can't zoom in to see exactly where he is. They can kind of scroll over and try to figure it out. But so I said, let's find out where he is. Okay, let's talk about it, And then we talked about, I pulled out the big idea from the article, which was, this man is saying that business is slow because people used to get their clothing fixed and now they kind of just move on to a new set of clothing, whatever. We talked about how technology changes things and how in our modern day people just want things instantly, instant gratification. I can't wait for a seamstress. And so I kind of just pulled out some sentences and summarized it for them. I didn't have them actually read it. There's a website called Newsella, and it is kind of revolutionized like current events reading for students. It is the students can choose their Lexile level, and it will change the article according to what their reading level is. So if they start reading it, if it's too hard, they can switch down a Lexile level. So that kind of goes back to your idea about, maybe making like a K or a 4th and 5th grade, 6th grade article, a 7th, 8th, and 9th grade reading level. Again, that's assuming all students are at the same reading level, which clearly they are not these days. And so we're always grappling with differentiating reading for students and how to do that. So well, I would love them to read it and kind of, I actually had one of the kids like start highlighting words they didn't understand, and then we sort of started like researching what those words meant and what those locations were, and that's a neat activity. I enjoy doing that. But again, that's forcing. I have 2 ELL students in my one class yesterday, and they were just, there's no way they weren't going to figure out what that article meant. So, I don't know. It's tricky. I want them to be reading those articles that he is actually posting because his writing is so wonderful. But they don't really see the value in reading hard things like that. I do.
Yeah, well, just to quickly respond, and then I've got a few comments here that I'll just say before we wrap up because I'm mindful of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking so much about rewriting the dispatches. I'm thinking more the annotation, and there I welcome feedback because I think broadly teachers like it that we've annotated some, but I think we need to think a bit more about how we're annotating them and if we have different versions. I mean, some of this is all to do with our bandwidth and what we can physically get done given all the other things we're doing. But I was thinking about discussions being grouped by age. I will say that I've just got some comments here that I don't want to miss from Pam Sengos, who's another return educator who's been doing fabulous work. She's saying it would be nice to post classroom to classroom in elementary and not see all the individual students' posts. Pam, if you're listening, I have to say that with this remodeling of the website, we did not pay good attention to what this would really look like for situations where teachers post for kids, and I really think we're ripe for redesigning and overhauling that, and I could not agree more, so thank you for that. She's saying last year we posted in the forum as a class, and this year with the 4th grades they're posting on their own. I'm wondering if it's possible when you sign up if you can select which way you'll be interacting and to get other classes doing it in the same way. And yes, that's kind of like 4th grade, we usually always check in, so that might, I'm afraid, Pam, be oversight on our part. We otherwise assume, unless we hear otherwise, 3rd grade and below, it will be the teacher posting, not the teacher. 4th grade, we've had a real divide between, I'd say about half have done it themselves, like Kim, your students did last year, and half the teachers have been more intermediary. And there's a comment, love news ELA, and Pam, I don't actually know what that is. I'll be honest.
I just mentioned about the Lexiles, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's what you were saying about it. Yeah. So we'll look into that because I have not even seen that.
Yeah, Stella.com, and they just do a really great job of taking current events and kind of, basically allowing students to choose what level works best for them. And that would involve rewriting Paul's articles, and we don't want to do that. But even if there's a way to interact with those articles, where the kids scroll over, and we see Anatolia, and they scroll over, and they can somehow jump off to another place so that they're more engaged as they're reading the article. That would be very cool to have some interactive features of that article. And I know with HTML, you can do that nowadays. Like just be able to scroll over a word and have a little pop-out come out. Even if they could see a little video or a map or a definition of a word or something like that. I don't know. It'd be neat.
I'll just put this out there. Not all of this work needs to be coming from us here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Like, I mean, without burdening people, if classes wanted to take it on as a project, to take a dispatch and make it accessible for other kids and add in some links and what have you, we'd be very happy. We might have better it, but I'm just putting that out there for anybody who's looking for an activity to do with their class that would serve a wider community. That could be like a really interesting thing that could happen.
Great point.
Yeah, great. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much. You're the only person left standing here. I also want to give a shout out that we really did try to invite people from outside the US. And I know the timing of this was more kind of, it's daytime for US teachers, but for anybody who's watching out there, we really want to get some non-US perspectives into our Google Plus Hangouts, because we are an international community, and it would just be great to share the wealth of what's happening in places like Spain, Saudi Arabia, Australia, India, China. I'm afraid they cannot participate because Google Plus Hangout is blocked in China, so it has to be done kind of in a creative way, but not live. But anybody else who's watching there, we would love to have you participate in another one. So great. Thank you, Kim. Enjoy the beautiful place that you live, and hope to see you soon.
All right, bye, Liz. Great to see you. Bye.
Bye.